Hi, this is Mark Birch, and this is a quick revision of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Chapter 9, Dr. Lanyon's narrative, and this is Part 2. Lanyon provides a detailed description of Hyde that conforms to the details earlier in the novella. Stevenson uses language appropriate to the Doctor to describe both Hyde and Lanyon's own reaction to him. The oddity of Hyde is evident in the ostensibly paradoxical description of him having a combination of great muscular activity and great apparent debility of constitution. Debility denotes physical weakness, so for this to be juxtaposed to a description of Hyde's strength conveys his strangeness. The syntactic parallelism created between great muscular activity and in great apparent debility serves to reinforce the strangeness of Hyde, as the sense of order created by parallelism is undermined by the antithetical elements that are balanced within Hyde. Lanyon's description of the effect of Hyde's presence is represented through medical terminology such as incipient rigour and a sinking of the pulse, but he ultimately hints that the effect of Hyde's presence is metaphysical, as it turns on some nobler hinge. Having described Hyde's clothes as enormously too large for him, Lanyon points out that the ludicrous clothing was not funny, as its abnormality matched Hyde himself, seeming to fit in with and to reinforce it. Lanyon dehumanizes Hyde, referring to him as a creature and modifying this noun with a series of adjectives that complement the wrongness of Hyde. He's abnormal and misbegotten, seizing, surprising, and revolting. The supernatural aspect of Hyde is alluded to in the effect of Hyde touching Lanyon's arm. Lanyon feels an icy pang along my blood, and the sense of cold could symbolise the fear that Hyde instills, literally chilling Lanyon. Hyde's apology to Lanyon was later regretted by Stevenson. He reflected that Hyde's language is too studied, seeming more like the language of a gentleman than the creature Hyde. However, sophisticated language in a dehumanized form could reinforce the theme of duality that dominates the novella. The bestial nature of Hyde is reinforced through his response to seeing the drawer. He sprang to it, and Lanyon hears the convulsive action of his jaws, descriptions that are associated with predatory animals. Stevenson provides a detailed description of the scientific process that Hyde performs, using technical terminology such as tincture, effervesce, ebullition, compound, and metamorphoses to give credence to the science fiction form of the novella. Hyde's use of anaphora in "Will you be wise?", "Will you be guided?", "Will you suffer me?" reinforces, through the rhetoric, his power and determination, the repetitions overwhelming. Hyde offers Lanyon a choice between ignorance and knowledge. The latter is described as offering new avenues to fame and power, suggesting that these selfish motives lie behind the mystery of the novella. Hyde says that Lanyon will be blasted by a prodigy, and this person with remarkable gifts that he appears to be referring to is Jekyll, as it's Jekyll who the potion will reveal. And this is a form of conceit entirely consistent with Jekyll's character, as evidenced when he refers to himself as Lanyon's superiors. Hyde's reference to Satan is apt, given that he's been described as Satan or the devil several times throughout the novella. Satan's presented as the ruler of unbelievers, but here Hyde seems to be suggesting that the reality of his transformation would force this most iconic of unbelievers to believe. In this instance, the hellish imagery is associated with Lanyon. He and Jekyll had fallen out over Jekyll's unscientific balderdash, but now Jekyll Hyde relishes the opportunity of forcing Lanyon to recognise the error of his unbelief. After drinking the potion, Stevenson employs a series of verbs that connote a loss of control and violent movement in order to convey the effect upon Hyde: reeled, staggered, clutched. The simile, injected eyes, maintains the horror of the transformation. The image of such a vulnerable part of the body having something forced into it is disturbing, but it also conveys the medical origins of this horror, supporting the Gothic convention of representing the transgression of the bounds of scientific knowledge. The horror and terror of the description is extended further by the disfigurement of Hyde as his face seemed to swell, becoming black, and the features seeming to melt and alter. Stevenson focuses on descriptions of the transformation and the effect on Lanyon, withholding the climax of the change and the novella itself in order to create as much tension as possible before finally revealing at the end of the paragraph that there stood Henry Jekyll. The conflict between Jekyll and Hyde, in terms of the dominance of each persona, is being lost by Jekyll, and the physical evidence of this is presented in the description of Jekyll as pale and shaken and half-fainting and groping like a man restored from death. The polysyndeton that dominates this description of Jekyll serves to convey through the overwhelming use of conjunctions how overwhelmed Jekyll is by his battle with Hyde. Lanyon recognises that what he has witnessed has mortally shocked him. He knows that he will die, yet states, "I shall die incredulous." Jekyll has not staggered the unbelief of Satan in terms of Lanyon's scepticism. Lanyon's letter ends by clarifying that the creature who came to his house was Hyde, a final clarification for the reader of the central mystery of the novella. And that's the end of Chapter 9. If you found it useful, please subscribe. Okay, ta!